too short for in the beginning, so we'll try this back next. All right, we are live. Day 440, 455, excuse me, of going live. Today, we're looking at more properties coming onto the market in Birmingham, Alabama. And today, just so that you know, I'm filtered on 4-bedroom plus single-family homes and properties that's been on the market for less than 7 days. And the reason we're looking at these properties is because, well, we are building out our comparable sales list for all the properties in this market. And this means that if you've been following what we've been doing, we've been looking at properties that have been coming onto the market every single that have been sold in the last 12 months. But then now we're also focusing on properties that are coming onto the market. And the reason we're doing this is because we are looking to track what is happening in the market, what's going on for properties coming on the market, what are they being listed for, and what are they being sold for. Because if you're pursuing a BRRRR strategy, which stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat, the whole point of that strategy is, let's use an example. If you're able to buy a property for $30,000 and you renovate that home for 40 grand, now you're all in at $70,000. But if you're able to make that home worth $100,000 after the rehab, well, now all of a sudden you can go get a loan for 70% of the home's value, which is $70,000, and you get that back in the form of loan proceeds. You can now rent and repeat using the same $70,000 that you originally invested to buy and rehab the property and use that towards the next property. That's why this strategy is so scalable. Because what's the alternative? Alternative is you have to save up for a 20% down from a full-time job, hope that you cash flow on your first deal, and then you save it all, do it all over again. You save up again for a full-time job, and you do it all over, which is why it's such a slow process. But this allows you to build equity and wealth very slowly, but it's still, everybody succeeds on their own, right? Everybody has their own strategies. But this strategy, if you have the right team, that allows you to put the right team in place and get the right projects off the ground. So here's what we're doing. The reason we're looking at properties is because if you understand how the 30-year mortgage interest rates work, they are based on two factors. One is the spread between the 10-year treasury yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates. Historically, that has been between about 1.5% to 2%. But it's gone as high as 3%. So that's why you saw interest rates going up to about as high as 8%. But now that the spread is narrowed, interest rates have come down, even though the 10-year yield interest rate has gone up. That's why you don't see interest rate in the 8% because that spread has narrowed. All right. So now, when we see this property, let's say this is 3105 Avenue B, Bessemer, Alabama, 35020, 4-bed, 1.5 bath. And I would say this property is pretty much rent ready. I could probably get rid of the carpet in one of these rooms. The bathroom could be a little bit more modern, but that's okay. It's not a deal breaker. So average room, average kitchen. So let me write down these details here. So this property is 3105 Alabama. Let's go to 35020. Here we go. And I'm writing down all these details because, look, at the end of the day, what's your perfect scenario, right? Your perfect comp is going to be, if I bought another property, let's say right next to this property, let's say it's this property right here, 3117, same square footage, same lot size, same finishes. I mean, that'd be your ideal comp, but that's never the case. As you go across natural borders such as creeks, rivers, mountains, and you go across man-made borders like railroad tracks, big main streets, highways, you're in different neighborhoods. So the further and further you get away from your comp, the risk of your ARV estimate being wrong or being off goes higher. So you have to manage that risk because, look, what's going to happen when an appraiser comes back to you and gives you a lower valuation than you would have liked? Meaning you didn't get back out all your capital if you were to proceed with that valuation. You have to be able to provide substantial proof to justify the value that you think the home is worth to appeal to it. And that's going to be a lot of work, right? So pay close attention to this. All right. So now that's why we're going to write down all these details on the dollar per square foot perspective. So this property is 1240 square foot. This property was built in 1978. 1978, being listed for $124,900. So on dollar per square foot perspective, it's being listed for $101 square foot. Listed 1221.24. 7840 is the lot size. There's no garage. There is a finished basement, I think, right? Did I read that correctly? Yeah, I think they call it a finished basement. No HOA. And this property, I believe it should be in Bessemer. So let me scroll out. This is probably closest to between Wheeling Crossroad, and Bessemer. Okay. Rent ready. Carpet needs to be removed in one room. Average kitchen, average bathrooms. Okay, great. So now this gives me a pretty good idea that if I were to find another home, that's a 3-bedroom home, for example, and it's 1240 square feet, but I can maybe convert one room to a 4th bedroom, then I would probably estimate that my max best case scenario is $100 per square foot. Great. That will allow me to go further along in the process later to decide whether or not this is worth all the efforts, okay? Okay, so now, here's what we're going to do next. We're now going to analyze this deal as is, because I want you guys to see what the numbers are if you were to pursue this property as just an on-the-market deal. All right, so now if I go to Creative Finance, my analysis spreadsheet, and I type in 124,900, let's see what numbers or set of terms will make this a deal, quote unquote. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to affordablehousing.com, go to the owner section, go to the market rent estimator. I want to plug in the address, plug in the bedroom count, and I want to see that the average rent for 25 units within a 3.6 mile radius is $1,459. I'm going to put $1,400 just to be a little conservative, not trying to take the best case scenario here. I'm going to see that property tax is $105 in the payment calculator from Redfin. So I'll do $105. Obviously, double check with your county assessor records before you close. And for my insurance, I'm going to take 97, which is the estimate right here, and I'll multiply it by 1.2 to add a 20% premium. This allows me to figure out whether or not I'm still in cash flow if I use this as an investment property, because typically insurance companies view your investment properties as a higher risk, so they're going to charge a higher premium. Okay. Then I'm setting aside 10% of my rents every single month for maintenance, big capital expenditure repairs, because I just got a bill for a roof replacement at one of our homes and it's $15,000. If you didn't set aside, let's say $140, $150 every single month for 100 months, you would have been overestimating your profitability because you underestimate your expenses, especially for expenses that you knew were coming down the road. All right, so now I got 10% set aside for property management, 5% set aside for vacancy expenses. If I do a 25% down on this property in F19, my down payment is going to be equals to my B4, my asking price, times my down payment percentage. That's $31,000. And now I am going to have a principal amount for my financing amount of B4, my asking price, minus my down payment. So I'm financing 93.7K. I'll do 7.5% interest rate right here. So if I rent this property out as a 4-bedroom for $1,400, I will cash $174 a month. That's a 5.4% cash and cash return. So we bought this property for $124,900 with a rehab of $4,200. I'm assuming it's a very low rehab here. I'm only setting aside $1,500 for the roof, $500 for landscaping. The roof is just for some repairs. $200 for some general painting to take care of it because it looks rent ready for already. I'm replacing 2 of the toilets with high pressure flush toilets to avoid any clogged toilet calls. That gets me $4,200. So that gives me the scenario, a $124,900. All right. Now, Watch what happens to this cash on cash return number as I lower my asking price. Let's say I go to 108. What did that get me? 105. Great. Let's say my target return was 10%. I will have to buy this property for 105 grand, which is 20 grand less, assuming everything else stays constant, $4,200 rehab, 7.5% interest rate, 25% down, to achieve a cash flow of $278 a month. With that will be a 10.1% cash on cash return. All right. Now, let's say you go to this property and all of a sudden you say, hey, the rehab triple, I'll multiply by 3. So in B6, I'll multiply by 3. Now, all of a sudden, if that happens, right, assuming you had a contingency for inspections and you find out something is going to cost a lot more than what you initially thought or estimated it was going to be, well, now all of a sudden, you're not going to be willing to pay as much. So now, all of a sudden, instead of paying 105, you can go back to the seller and say, hey, my rehab is now going to be 3 times as much. So I can only pay you 95 grand, right? All these things matter. And this allows you to take emotions out of the deal and stay focused on the numbers. Because if the deal doesn't work, the deal doesn't work. Now, does that mean everybody has to go after a 10% return? No, this is not investment advice. We're not soliciting any investments on this call. We're just simply showing the work that we do every single day to figure out what's the deal. Let's say your interest rates drop down to 6%. So even though your rehab tripled, but interest rates dropped down by 1.5%, now all of a sudden you might be able to go back to 105 or 108, right? That still works. So if your interest rates dropped to 6%, that's why you got to pay close attention to a 10-year treasury yield, 343. Now you're able to cash flow $343 a month, assuming you're still renting out for $1,400. But now you can afford to pay 108, even with the rehab tripled, right? Because that's a 9.7% return. Big difference. And that's how you adjust the levers up and down to figure out what set of terms or price will make this a deal, quote unquote, a deal for you. All right, I hope this was helpful, everybody. I hope you're able to copy my homework, right? Analyze the same deal analyze today. This property is on the market. You guys want to copy the spreadsheet, just go to affordablehousing.io, go to the Get Deal Analysis tool, put your name, email, phone number. That's the fastest way to get a copy of the spreadsheet. I didn't make the spreadsheet from scratch. I got it from a few other folks. A modified tweet so that I can analyze deals as fast as possible, because that's how you avoid burnout. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Saturday. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 456. Have a good one, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow.